The quantum sensors aboard Coalition Deep Space Station Lambda 17 registered nothing unusual until they simply stopped working. No alarms, no warnings, the most sophisticated detection equipment in known space just quit. In the station's primary observation deck, Chief Science Officer Vextera's crystalline form sparkled with anxiety patterns as all 6 of her sensor stalks twisted toward the dead displays. Station Director, she harmonized, her crystalline voice tight with concern, "We have a situation." Director Nazgul's massive form shifted, all 4 of his primary eyes focusing on the empty screens. In 3 centuries of monitoring this sector, nothing had ever disabled their quantum array. "Show me backup systems." "That's the problem, sir." Vextera's voice chimed with barely controlled panic. "They're all working perfectly. They just can't see anything in grid sector 7. A complete sensor void. Impossible. The Coalition's quantum arrays could detect a coffee cup at 10 light-years. Nothing could hide from them. Nothing was supposed to be able to hide from them. "Contact the defense fleet," Nazgul ordered, his secondary arms already reaching for the emergency protocols tablet. "Full alert status." Before Vextera could relay the order, every screen in the observation deck blazed to life. The void in Sector 7 wasn't empty anymore. It had never been empty. The ship that appeared seemed to drink in light rather than reflect it. No view screen could properly focus on its hull, sensors slid off its surface like water off oil. It was massive, easily dwarfing the largest Coalition dreadnoughts, yet it moved with an impossible grace that violated everything they knew about physics. By the first ones, Vextera whispered, her crystalline form now pulsing with patterns that hadn't been seen since the Coalition's last Great War. "What is it?" The answer came not from any of their sensors or analysts, but from the ship itself. A transmission, broadcast simultaneously in all 2,743 known Coalition languages. "Greetings, Coalition Station Lambda 17. This is the Earth ship Nightingale. We come in peace." The message was followed by nothing. No demands. No threats. Just silence and that impossible ship, hanging in space like a dark star. Director Nazgul felt his spine ridges flatten, a genetic fear response his species hadn't needed in millennia. "Earth?" he questioned. "There is no record of any civilization called Earth in the Coalition database." "Sir," one of the junior analysts called out, their tentacles writhing in agitation, "the ship, it's not using any known form of propulsion. No ion trails, no quantum wake, no dimensional folding signatures. It's as if..." "As if what?" "As if it's simply deciding where it wants to be in spacetime and, going there." The Coalition prided itself on being the pinnacle of galactic civilization. They had mapped the spaces between spaces, had written the laws of physics into their constitutions, had tamed gravity itself. But in all their histories, in all their expansions, they had never encountered anything like this. "Sir." Vextera's voice shifted to her emergency harmonics. "They're launching something." A small object detached from the Nightingale's hull. Unlike its parent ship, this one was clearly visible, a simple metallic sphere about 2 meters in diameter. It approached the station at a very deliberate, very obvious speed. "Defensive systems?" Nazgul demanded. "Online but..." Vextera's voice chimed in confusion, "They can't get a lock. It's as if the object isn't actually there, even though we can all see it." The sphere stopped precisely 1 kilometer from the station's main diplomatic dock. A new message arrived, again in perfect Coalition standard. "We have sent an environmental analysis probe. Once we confirm compatibility, we would like to request permission to send a diplomatic delegation. We have much to discuss." Director Nazgul felt the weight of history settling onto his shoulder ridges. First contact protocols existed, of course, but they all assumed the Coalition would be the advanced civilization making contact. Nothing in his training had prepared him for being on the other side of that equation. "Sir," Vexterra chimed softly, the probe, it's already mapped our entire station. Every deck, every system, every life form aboard. The scan was so subtle our sensors only just noticed it happened several minutes ago. Nazgul stared at the dark ship through the observation window. The Coalition had spent millennia believing they were the height of civilization, the most advanced species in known space. That belief had just been shattered in the span of 15 minutes by a ship that treated their most advanced technology like primitive toys. Send to the Nightingale, he finally ordered. Message begins, we welcome peaceful contact. Please proceed with your delegation. Message ends. As the words left the station, Nazgul couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy was about to change forever. He just wasn't sure if that was a good thing or not. What he did know was that whoever these humans were, wherever this, Earth, was located, they had just demonstrated more advanced technology in their first contact than the Coalition had developed in 10,000 years of civilization. And they had done it all without a single threat, without a single aggressive move, with perfect diplomatic courtesy. Somehow, that was the most terrifying part of all. The diplomatic chamber of Station Lambda 17 had hosted thousands of species over its centuries of operation. Its environmental systems could replicate any atmosphere, any gravity, any condition needed for comfortable dialogue. Yet for the first time in the station's history, those systems were struggling. The human delegation had requested Earth standard conditions. What they got instead were warning lights and engineering alerts as the gravitational generators strained to maintain what the humans called light gravity. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood comfortably in the chamber, her posture relaxed despite gravitational forces that would have crushed most Coalition species. Behind her, 4 other human diplomats seemed equally at ease, their environmental suits gleaming under the chamber's lights. Perhaps, Chen suggested with a gentle smile, we should adjust to your standard conditions. It seems our natural environment is challenging for your systems. Director Nazgul's secondary arms twitched involuntarily. The humans had been nothing but courteous, yet every new piece of information about them sent ripples of primal fear through the Coalition representatives. You live in these conditions constantly? Vexterra asked, her crystalline form vibrating with scientific curiosity. She had insisted on attending this meeting, protocol be damned. Oh no, Chen replied, her smile widening slightly. These are quite comfortable conditions. Earth's gravity is approximately 2.7 times what we're experiencing now. The atmospheric pressure is also considerably higher. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the station's ambient hum seemed to pause. Impossible, one of the Coalition scientists whispered. No advanced civilization could evolve in such conditions. The energy requirements alone. That's what makes humanity unique, Lieutenant James Wilson, one of the human delegates, stepped forward. We didn't just evolve under those conditions, we thrived in them. Earth isn't just a heavy gravity world. It's a planet of extremes. The holographic display in the center of the chamber activated, showing a blue-green world wrapped in swirling white clouds. But unlike the peaceful garden worlds of the Coalition, this planet seemed alive with violence. Massive storms swept across continents. Volcanoes spewed rivers of molten rock. Oceans deeper than some Coalition worlds roiled with powerful currents. Our world, Chen continued, experiences temperature variations that would shatter most Coalition materials. Our atmospheric composition would be considered toxic by your standards. We have regions covered in ice kilometers thick, and deserts hot enough to melt lead. Our planet's crust is constantly moving, creating earthquakes that can reshape continents. And you survived this? Director Nazgul's primary eyes widened in disbelief. We did more than survive, Wilson said. We adapted. Every challenge Earth presented made us stronger, more resilient, more innovative. When the environment threatened us, we didn't just endure, we found ways to turn those threats into advantages. The hologram shifted, showing human cities nestled among these extreme environments. Massive structures that withstood nature's fury. Transportation systems that laughed at gravity's pull. Energy generation systems that harnessed the very forces that should have destroyed them. This is why our ship, the Nightingale, appears so advanced to your sensors, Chen explained. We had to master space-time manipulation just to achieve efficient spaceflight from Earth. What you see as impossible technology is simply the result of evolving on a world that never stopped trying to kill us. Vextera's scientific curiosity overcame her fear. But surely your species must have limitations? The energy cost of moving in such gravity alone. Actually, Wilson interjected with a small laugh, we had to design our environmental suits to limit our strength and speed in standard gravity environments. Without them, we might accidentally damage station equipment or injure other species during casual interaction. The implications hit the coalition representatives like a physical force. These humans weren't just surviving in conditions that would kill most species, they had to restrain themselves to interact with the rest of the galaxy. We understand this information might be concerning, Chen said diplomatically. But we hope you'll see it as an opportunity. Humanity doesn't want to dominate or frighten. We want to collaborate, to share knowledge. Every species has its strengths. Ours just happen to come from growing up on what you might call a death world. Director Nazgul studied the human delegates with all four of his primary eyes. Their bodies, hidden beneath those environmental suits, had been forged by pressures he could barely imagine. Their minds had been sharpened by constant survival challenges. Yet here they stood, speaking of peace and cooperation with genuine sincerity. There is an old coalition saying, he finally responded. The hardest metals are forged in the hottest fires. Perhaps humanity is living proof of this wisdom. Chen's smile returned, warmer this time. We have a similar saying on Earth, pressure creates diamonds. Speaking of which. She gestured to one of her colleagues, who stepped forward with a small container. We've brought some examples of Earth minerals formed under natural conditions. Your scientists might find them interesting. As the coalition representatives gathered around the container, Director Nazgul couldn't help but wonder, what kind of species emerges from a world that makes diamonds as casually as his world makes sand? And what did it mean for the future of the galaxy that these impossible beings wanted to be friends? No one saw the hive coming. Their quantum-dark ships slipped through coalition space like shadows through smoke, leaving only destruction in their wake. 3 colonies fell in the first day, their inhabitants harvested for the hive's endless hunger. By the second day, the coalition defense fleet had mobilized, and been scattered like leaves in a storm. Director Nazgul stood in Lambda 17's command center, watching as another distress beacon went dark. How many? He asked, his voice heavy. 7 colony worlds, Vextera replied, her crystalline form dulled with exhaustion. 4 defense stations. 13 refugee convoys. The hive, they're not even salvaging technology anymore. They're just destroying everything they touch. The hive's message had been simple, the galaxy belonged to them. All other life was merely food or sport. The coalition's weapons, impressive against pirates and raiders, might as well have been throwing stones at a supernova. The humans, one of the junior analysts suggested, their tentacles curling with hope. Their technology has been noted and dismissed by the hive, Nazgul interrupted. Their exact words were, single-world species are irrelevant. He paused, all 4 primary eyes focusing on the tactical display. Though they should be receiving our distress call any moment now. The response came faster than anyone expected. Not in words, but in action. Space itself seemed to ripple, and the Nightingale appeared in the midst of the hive fleet. But it wasn't alone. 5 more human ships materialized alongside it, each one different, each one impossible in its own way. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force, the transmission cut through all channels, clear and calm. You were warned once. There will not be a second warning. The hive responded with overwhelming force. Thousands of fighter craft poured from their carrier ships, while their capital ships charged their main weapons. The space around the human vessels turned into a sun as energy weapons powerful enough to crack planets were unleashed. When the light faded, the human ships were untouched. They hadn't raised shields. They hadn't evaded. They had simply decided not to be affected. As you wish, Chen's voice carried a note of genuine regret. Nightingale Battle Group, you are authorized to demonstrate Earth Standard Combat Protocol 1. What followed defied explanation. The human ships didn't fire conventional weapons. Instead, space itself became their weapon. Regions of heightened gravity crushed hive ships into spheres the size of marbles. Points of quantum discontinuity caused others to simply cease existing. One human vessel created what appeared to be a localized time loop, causing a hive dreadnought to experience its own destruction infinitely. By the first ones, Vextera whispered, her scientific mind struggling to process what she was seeing. They're not fighting the hive. They're rewriting the laws of physics around them. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted less than 5 minutes. Of the mighty hive fleet, nothing remained except a few intact ships, held in stasis fields. Coalition Station Lambda 17, Chen's voice returned, as calm as if she were discussing the weather. We've secured several hive vessels for your scientists to study. The rest have been permanently removed from this space-time configuration. Do you require medical assistance for your affected worlds? Director Nazgul found his voice. Admiral Chen, the hive fleet you just defeated, it destroyed half our defense force. How? As we explained earlier, Earth's conditions required us to master fundamental forces at a very early stage. The hive's technology is impressive, but they're still playing with toys compared to what evolution forced us to develop. There was a pause. We do apologize for not responding sooner. Our ships had to make a slight detour to evacuate the populations of 3 of the affected colonies. The refugees are safe and will be returned once we've helped you establish proper planetary defenses. The command center fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans hadn't just defeated an unstoppable enemy, they'd done it casually, while simultaneously conducting rescue operations that the coalition hadn't even known were possible. One more thing, Chen added, and for the first time, there was a hint of steel in her voice. We've analyzed the hive's communication networks. We know where they came from. And we know about the other 17 fleets they sent toward populated sectors of the galaxy. A pause. They won't be reaching their destinations. Vextera's sensor stalks quivered. Other fleets? But that would mean. Yes, Chen confirmed. While we were talking, Earth Defense Force battle groups 2 through 6 were eliminating the hive threat across roughly 1/3 of the galaxy. As I said, we apologize for the delay in responding to your specific situation. Director Nazgul stared at the tactical display, watching as the human ships efficiently began rescue and recovery operations. These beings, who could casually rewrite physics, who had just eliminated a species that had terrified the coalition, were now gently helping survivors and rebuilding worlds. Admiral Chen, he finally said, I believe the Coalition Council will want to discuss upgrading Earth's status from potential ally to protected status civilization. Chen's laugh was warm but carried an edge of something ancient and powerful. That's very kind, Director. But I think you misunderstand. We're not here to be protected. We're here to do the protecting. After all, isn't that what friends are for? The discovery happened during a routine cultural exchange. Dr. Maya Rodriguez, a human xenoanthropologist, was studying coalition historical records when she noticed the pattern. Species after species, marked as protected, guided, or developing, all conveniently providing resources and labor to the coalition's central worlds. She wasn't the first to notice. She was just the first who couldn't be silenced. Director Nazgul, Maya, stood in his private office, her environmental suit's readings showing elevated heart rate but steady voice. We need to discuss the Artaxian situation. All four of Nazgul's primary eyes focused on her. The Artaxians are a protected species. They're not ready for dash. They built the quantum core of this station, Maya interrupted. Just like the Varadi, primitives, designed your faster-than-light drives. And the Kalari, developing species who mine your crucial elements. She placed a data crystal on his desk. They're not protected. They're enslaved. The silence stretched between them like a drawn wire. Dr. Rodriguez, Nazgul finally said, his secondary arms moving in agitation, you don't understand our history. The coalition maintains order. Structure. We guide lesser species dash. A soft chime interrupted him. The nightingale had moved, instantly appearing outside the station's main viewport. No warning, no transition, it was simply there, its dark hull reflecting nothing. Interesting timing, Maya said quietly. Did you know humans have a long, dark history with slavery? We learned, generations ago, that building advancement on the backs of others doesn't just harm them, it corrupts us. She touched a control on her suit. The Artaxians aren't primitive. They're being kept primitive. Their children are taught they're inferior. Their innovations are stolen. Their culture is being systematically erased. These are internal coalition matters, Nazgul started, but his voice faded as Maya's environmental suit began to shimmer. No, she said. Not anymore. The suit dissolved, revealing her true form for the first time. Coalition atmospheric mix rushed around her, gravity pulled at her bones with double force, but she stood unaffected. Humanity doesn't need environmental suits, Director. We never did. We wore them to make you comfortable. To be diplomatic. But diplomacy has its limits. The station's sensors exploded with alerts as more human ships appeared. Not warships, hospital ships, cultural vessels, education cruisers. An entire humanitarian fleet, deployed across coalition space in an instant. Right now, Maya continued, human representatives are making the same announcement on every exploited world in coalition space. We're offering choice. Real choice. Education. Technology. Freedom. She smiled, but there was steel behind it. And before you mention the defense fleet, remember what a single human battle group did to the hive. We don't want conflict, Director. But we won't allow slavery to continue. Nazgul's ridge spines flattened. You would destroy everything we've built. The order we maintain. No. We're going to help you build something better. Maya's voice softened. The coalition achieved amazing things, but you've lost your way. True civilization isn't built on exploitation, it's built on lifting each other up. The station's communications array lit up as messages flooded in. The Artaxians, realizing their chains were breaking, were already sharing centuries of suppressed innovations. The Varadi were revealing revolutionary drive designs they'd hidden from their protectors. The Kalari were emerging from their minds with art and music and dreams. Your council has two choices, Maya said. Work with us to transform the coalition into a true partnership of species, or watch as we help these people transform it without you. She turned to leave, then paused. We learned something else from our history, Director. The hardest chains to break are the ones we don't know we're wearing. Even the coalition itself has been trapped by its own assumptions about how civilization must work. Outside, the human ships were already at work. Medical teams treating generations of industrial injuries. Engineering crews upgrading safety systems. Education ships broadcasting centuries of suppressed knowledge. The Council will never agree, Nazgul said, but his voice lacked conviction. They already have. Maya smiled again, gentler this time. Check your updates. While we've been talking, humanity's ambassadors have been meeting with your council. They had a choice between facing the anger of every exploited species in coalition space, or accepting humanity's offer to help manage a peaceful transition to true equality. She gestured at the viewport, where coalition ships were arriving, not to fight, but to help. Many of their crews were already requesting to join the humanitarian effort. That's the real power of humanity, Maya said. Not our technology. Not our strength. But our memory of climbing out of our own darkness, and our determination to help others do the same. She placed another data crystal on his desk. These are the transformation protocols the Council just approved. Your station will be one of the first cultural integration centers. If you choose to help, you can be part of building something unprecedented, a true galactic community of equals. Nazgul stared at the crystal, then at the activity outside his viewport. Centuries of coalition doctrine said this would lead to chaos. But watching the calm efficiency of the human ships, the eager response of the primitive species, the willing cooperation of coalition crews, maybe chaos wasn't what they should fear. Maybe what they should fear was the stagnation of believing that exploitation was the only way to progress. Where do we start? He asked. Maya's smile warmed. We start by listening. Really listening. To every species, every voice, every dream that's been silenced. She gestured at his communications array. The Artaxians have some fascinating ideas about improving your station's efficiency. Shall we invite them up to discuss them? As equals? And so began the great transformation, not through war or revolution, but through the simple, powerful act of recognizing the dignity in every sentient being. Humanity hadn't come to conquer the galaxy. They'd come to set it free. 20 coalition cycles had passed, what humans would call 5 years. The Galactic Council chamber, once a place of rigid hierarchies and carefully maintained power structures, now hummed with the energy of true diversity. Species once labeled primitive sat alongside their former protectors, their innovations and insights transforming the galaxy in ways no one had imagined possible. Admiral Sarah Chen, now serving as Earth's primary representative, stood at the center of the chamber. Around her, representatives from over 300 species, formerly separated into advanced and developing categories, gathered for what many were calling the most important session in galactic history. The coalition is dead, she began, her voice carrying naturally through the vast space. Long live the Galactic Alliance. The chamber erupted in approving sounds from 1,000 different vocal organs. Even former coalition hardliners joined in, having seen their worlds prosper beyond imagination under the new order. 5 years ago, Chen continued, humanity entered this galaxy as strangers. We found great achievements, but also great wrongs. Today, we gather to celebrate not what humanity has done, but what all of us have accomplished together. The massive holographic display activated, showing transformed worlds across the galaxy. Artaxian quantum engineering had revolutionized transportation. Varadi artists had created entirely new forms of entertainment that crossed species boundaries. Kalari philosophers had sparked a renaissance in galactic thought. But our greatest achievement, Chen smiled, was learning to see ourselves in each other. Former director, now Ambassador Nazgul, stepped forward. His once rigid diplomatic posture had softened over the years. Humanity taught us something we had forgotten, he said. True strength isn't about domination, it's about lifting each other up. They could have conquered us. Instead, they chose to free us, even those of us who didn't know we were trapped. The display shifted to show the new Galactic Academy, where species from across the galaxy shared knowledge freely. In one classroom, a Kalari child was teaching quantum physics to amazed coalition scientists. In another, Artaxian engineers collaborated with human experts to push the boundaries of space-time manipulation. But perhaps, Chen added, the most remarkable change has been in how we view challenge and adversity. She gestured to a new section of the display, showing mixed-species crews tackling previously impossible problems. We've learned that difficulty breeds innovation. Humanity's death world origins taught us that harsh conditions don't limit advancement, they spark it. The evidence was everywhere. Coalition worlds once considered too hostile for settlement now hosted thriving communities, their inhabitants protected by technology that merged human resilience with Artaxian ingenuity. Former slave mines had become research centers, their depths yielding secrets about the universe's fundamental forces. Today, Chen announced, we ratify not just a new political structure, but a new understanding of civilization itself. The Galactic Alliance isn't built on power or control, but on a simple truth: every species, every individual, has something unique to contribute. The chamber's air filled with dancing lights as the Kalari representatives expressed their approval in their traditional way. Crystalline chimes from the Vextaran delegates harmonized with the subsonic rumbles of the deep space-dwelling Moor. And so, Chen raised her hand, no longer wearing an environmental suit, no longer pretending to be less than she was. We face the future not as rulers and subjects, not as advanced and primitive, but as equals. Different, yes. Unique, certainly. But equal in our right to grow, to learn, to contribute. The ratification vote was unanimous, the first time in galactic history that every species had agreed on anything. As the new alliance charter was confirmed, space itself seemed to shimmer with possibility. Humanity's greatest strength, Nazgul observed later, watching ships of all species moving freely through the alliance's capital sector, wasn't your technology or your physical power. It was your ability to see potential in everyone. Chen watched an Artaxian ship execute a perfectly impossible maneuver using principles that merged three different species' understanding of physics. We had a lot of practice, she said. Earth taught us that strength comes in many forms. That survival isn't about being the strongest, but about working together. Above them, the stars seemed brighter somehow, as if reflecting the combined light of billions of minds finally free to shine at their full potential. The galaxy had been transformed not by conquest or revolution, but by something far more powerful: the simple act of recognizing the value in every sentient being. Besides, Chen added with a smile, watching a group of mixed-species children playing in the station's newly designed zero-gravity recreation area, can you imagine how boring the galaxy would be if we were all the same? The laughter that followed, from human throat and alien voice organ alike, carried with it the sound of a new age. An age where difference was celebrated, not feared. Where strength was measured not by what you could take, but by what you could give. The galaxy had indeed changed forever. But this time, everyone agreed it was for the better.